And I would really appreciate it if you would stop Rob Taylor from blathering on and on.
Opinions expressed by talk show hosts, callers, or guests on the Rob Taylor Report do not necessarily represent the opinions of the hosting platform, subsidiaries, sponsors, or possibly anyone else on the planet or the known universe. From the tinfoil and lead-lined broadcast bunker on the beautiful southern coast of Oregon, it's the Rob Taylor Report. So strap yourself in. Your weekly political therapy session is about to begin. Ladies and gentlemen, here he is, the nearly famous Rob Taylor.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining me. Sorry for that brief delay. It was funny. I watched the intro and I just did my whole shtick when I do the intro, and it wasn't even playing because I wasn't even on screen. But I do have a guest today. We got a really cool guest, someone who is controversial, but always exciting, never boring. This guy is always on the mark, and the fact that he is controversial means he's probably right over target, because unless you're taking flack, you really don't know if you are good or not, and that's why he's labeled as controversial, much like me. So that's why I like this guy. We're a little on the wild side when it comes to politics, and that's okay, because it kind of reminds you of someone who else is a little bit wild in politics. Maybe that guy they just elected for president, maybe he is a little, I would think so, after the way he handled those Colombians and that Colombian president. He's out on the golf course and he hears the word that the Colombians aren't going to take those illegal immigrants. He throws out a tweet and tells the Colombian president, well, you're going to be facing some consequences. That's what the big guy says. You're going to be facing some consequences. And within an hour, I think it was an hour, the Colombian president capitulated. Why? Because that's a leader. That's what a leader does. I mean, before they would have formed a committee, got a task force. It would have taken 10 days to name the people on the committee. Then they would have had to go through approval for the name of the committee. And you know how it goes with, politics as usual. But now with President Trump, he gets it done. And that's what I like about this guy, Ben Edtl. He likes to get it done, and if he ruffles a few feathers, well, so be it. So joining me right now, one of my favorite people, Ben Edtl. Ben, how you doing, man?
Rob, man, it's good to see you. Thank you for that intro. I just can only pray that I live up to it.
Oh, man, you do all the time. When you walked in the other night on the Coos County Republican meeting, it was like a breeze just went right through the room. You could feel it, and it was like the way you walked in, the way you came in, and you were wearing that green pastel jacket, man. That was great. It was so Portland, and it was like everyone sitting back going, "Whoa!" Because we're a bunch of country folk. Flannel is the formal wear here, and you were just
don't knock flannel. You can't knock flannel,
right?
You can't do it. Don't do it.
So you were great, man. And I love the fact that every time that they asked you a question, you brought it back to the number one issue. And of course, the number one issue is the security of our elections. One of those weak points is voting by mail, and you're leading the charge on that.
Yeah, no, I really appreciated being invited. I heard that the chair of Coos County provided all the names of the candidates who are running for ORP chair, and my name was left off.
Yep.
So, you mentioned that I was controversial, but here's the truth. The truth is that I'm only labeled controversial by my political opponents who want to preserve status quo The fact of the matter is that I just say what everyone else is already thinking and is too afraid to say because it's the truth. And so that's what, oh, he's controversial. He's telling the truth. You can't do that in politics. You can't do that on TV. And so, getting out there and telling the truth is really what I've been about since 2020, and I hope to do it again today. But yeah, and vote by mail is the deal. Look, with vote by mail, you cannot confirm that a single person cast a single vote, period, end of story, okay? That's why we have vote by mail. It's not convenience. It's not expense. It's not any other thing other than the fact that when Democrats wanted to have total control over the state of Oregon, they launched vote by mail, centralized counting, brought in the computers, brought in the ERIC system, brought in the DMV, and all the data, refused to actually eliminate somebody from the voter rolls if they died or moved out of state. They just call it not registered and active. And so everything's electronic. No one can look in. After Sipple or Washington County v. Sipple, the legislative supermajority, Democrat supermajority, passed a bill that prevented the public from seeing the cast vote record. The cast vote record is the only way that you can see that what the computers are actually counting and when. And so when you remove that, there's no way to determine any level of fraud by fact other than looking at the laws themselves. The laws are very basic and straightforward. It's anything goes. We have a law that says that ballots can be received and counted up to 7 days past election day if it's postmarked by election day. But if it's received and counted and not postmarked, it is assumed that it was mailed by election day. So
and before you go any further, hold on. Before you go any further, let's not correct it, but you got that absolutely right. But let's point out the fact that most of the ballots here in counties like Coos, they go to the post office and go directly to the elections office without ever receiving a postmark. And she has to accept them. And that's fact. They don't have to have a postmark on here, just like you said. So, and that happens in Coos County. They take them directly to the clerk's office.
Yeah, it says it. I mean, it's in the legislation. It's real simple. They have rules set aside at the Secretary of State, and Washington State, California has the same rule, that elections cannot be audited by any third party or any other branch of government other than the Secretary of State. So the Secretary of State counts the ballots, receives the ballots, prints the ballots, stores the ballots, receives the ballots, and then they audit the elections. Nothing wrong here. It all makes sense.
Right.
I mean, you can talk anomalies all day long, and anomalies are vast, especially in this last election cycle where they just had to do some brazenly crazy things, like 140,000 ballots received in Portland, in Multnomah County on election day. It's the first time that's ever happened. That's like 20% of the entire population. That didn't fucking happen. That did not fucking happen. It's never happened with mail-in vote by mail ever. And it didn't happen on November 5th, 2024. They needed that many ballots in order to put Joanne Hardesty across Portland City Council, to get Lori Chavez-DeRemer out of office, to make sure that no Republicans in the Portland metro area won their races, despite the fact that the polls were absolutely overwhelming for being against all these far left policies. Even Democrats said no to this stuff. But here we are.
Here we are, and it's this nepotism that is going on in government, because they're all Democrats. They've become Democrats because of the vote by mail, also because of the voter rolls. They're not cleaning them. I mean, like you said, there are people who've been dead a decade who were once Republicans who are now voting Democrat. It's if I died, Ben, please make sure that I'm not voting Democrat a year later. Please make sure. But seriously,
they won't show anybody.
Right?
You're just going to vote, and no one will know.
Yep. And so, have you been keeping up with what? There's a couple of election integrity groups here, and I think the one here in Coos County is helping you. It's part of I forget the gentleman's name. He wears the bow tie guy.
Yeah, Dr. Douglas Frank.
Dr. Douglas Frank. And I mean, he did a debate here against one of the other experts from the other side, and he tore them up in our county commission. It was beautiful. And yet he was able to demonstrate that there is a strange anomaly where all of the voter rolls have correlated to a point where instead of seeing a line, many different lines from all the different counties, it's gone into one single thread, that the voter rolls are all the same in every county. You can't tell me it's not being manipulated. There's no way you could tell me that.
Yeah, it is absolutely bizarre. People have to understand, like, if you really want to talk about anomalies, and before I say that, if you want indisputable proof that our elections are fully rigged and that the government itself is deciding the outcome of every election, whether it be local to federal, all the way across the board, just look no further than the election laws themselves. That's all you need to see, because it's designed to have an anything goes system. So anomalies, what you're talking about, these algorithmic numbers that we're charting, elections are a poll. Polls are random. Anytime you take a poll, that poll, if it is not apparently random mathematically, that means it is fixed. Plain and simple. Right?
Yeah.
It's a poll.
Right.
When you're counting, if it's between me and somebody else, you're going to get 100 votes for me, 50 votes for them, 200 votes for them, 10 votes for me, 17 for them. Like, that's how it's going to look. Okay.
Yeah.
But it never looks that way. In fact, in every election, at least in the Portland Metro, for the state legislature, which we now have a Democrat supermajority now in the Senate and the House. Okay, again, right? That's just like, didn't happen. But all these races, they were all about 60-40. And every time the Secretary of State dropped new ballot data, most of the races in the Portland Metro and the surrounding Portland Metro, where there was actual Republican challengers to Democrat incumbents, the data stayed within 0.1% the same, the difference between the Democrat and Republican. So every time they came out with new ballot drops, it's as if the same number of Republicans and Democrats showed up to vote at the same time. So it's an odd, it's a very odd occurrence. Another really big odd occurrence was with Washington County v. Sipple. This is from a case from 2022 where Tim Sipple, a Free Oregon guy, an elections integrity guy in Washington County, he wants to get some data from the elections. Long story short, elections says no, can't give it to you. He goes to the district attorney in Washington County. District attorney says, that's your data. This is the public. This is the public's data. You can have it. Compels Washington County to give him what he was asking for. And what he was asking for was like the test run before they actually start counting received ballots. They fill out real ballots and send them through the machine, maybe 10 or 20, and they just check for accuracy. So anyway, this should be just a quick, simple thing, but Washington County actually gives them on accident the entire thing, the whole 2020 presidential election out of Washington County. We're talking 8 terabytes of data, and he freaks out, and there's fun details about that story, but I'll spare you. What happened was that we notified Washington County, because we brought Joncus in to defend him, that they had accidentally given him that data. Department of Justice, the Oregon Attorney General sued on behalf of Washington County to get it back and to put a gag order on us for the data. But we won in court. We were able to have the data and analyze it. So we sent it to Dr. Frank's team. And what he came back with was a number of things. But the most crazy thing was that you got to understand, there's 126 precincts in Washington County. It's a big county, 126 precincts. In each and every precinct, 86% of Democrats turned out. 86% in each and every precinct. 126 precincts. They got
it's a miracle. It's a miracle.
Wow. What lottery tickets, man? Because this will never, ever fucking happen, ever. Okay? And so then what he also finds out is that in each and every precinct, exactly 82% of Republicans turned out in each and every one. So there's a ceiling. The Democrats got additional turnout numbers and Republicans got this. And if you voted above that or they voted below that, it didn't matter.
Right. Because they were going to get the numbers that they needed because they're padding the voter rolls. And it's amazing.
Yeah. And in that court case, this is a time, this is a time in 2022 when nationally, the debate about the stolen elections and J6 and all this stuff was really just, across the country, kitchen table issues. Every Democrat across the country defending their bullshit election system was saying these things aren't connected to the internet. You can't hack them. It doesn't. There's no way to do it. There's no way to do it. We're in court. It is on the record. The Attorney General in there saying, yes, these are not only just connected to the internet, the tabulators, they also put out their own Wi-Fi network. So they're networks, they're Wi-Fi. And so we're sitting there in court going, yep, got it, exactly. And they're like the size of a pinhead. They just sit inside these machines and they emote a Wi-Fi signal, and you can log in from your laptop in the parking lot outside of the county clerk's office. And we showed them. We did, it was about 5 pages of code to take the dots and switch them to a different vote. And we could do it and automate it and run it as a program. And we showed the court how easy it was to do that. And the court used that against us because the argument ultimately in Washington County v. Civil was, is it our data or is it the state's data? Who gets to oversee elections? Who gets to audit the election? That was what the fundamental question of the case was.
Oh, wow.
And they said, this is why you cannot let the public have this data, because they'll learn how to hack the system. It's extremely vulnerable, they said. Extremely vulnerable. And we have to lock this thing up so that nobody can see it. And you know what? We lost that case because we proved how vulnerable our elections were. And the judge said, you're right, state. We have to keep the people absolutely out of this process.
Yep.
That's what happened.
And that's exactly verbatim what Dr. Frank says. He tells that same story when he comes to town, and he actually told the commissioners, and there was an argument between our IT guy and Dr. Frank over the machine that our county uses. I forget the exact machine it is. And he told him that he could break into that. And of course, the guy stands up, IT, no, it's not connected. There's a firewall between, that and the internet. And we all know it was bullshit. And we've heard the same stories that you've heard. So Dr. Frank said, look, if you allow me, I can do it. And so we're still working with the commissioners. We may have that, but eventually come out. But I don't know. The commissioners now seem a little leery of that because I think they're worried about the legal ramifications of actually proving the system, fallible.
Yeah, well, there's going to be a lot to that, but I think the commissioners have to do this. Commissioners have some authorities that they can take on, but we have to fight back because, look, I've said this. I'm running to be the leader of the Oregon GOP,
right?
And I don't give a shit if I'm elected GOP leader or not, because here's the deal: I'm going to fight from where I'm at here, but I want the delegates in the Oregon Republican Party to have the option or the choice to allow me to fight from there. And I'm pretty relevant. My groups are pretty relevant. NBBM is pretty relevant. We're now expanding into Washington State, and we're going to be expanding into California. And so that's relevant. That's as relevant as it gets.
Right.
And so so that's the point of this here. But I'll tell you, man. See, I just lost where I was going. I hate it when I do that.
Oh, yeah, that's okay. You were talking about the Republican Party and how you were helping the delegates learn more about this, and you don't give a damn whether you win or not, which is true because you're able to do what you're doing with or without the party leadership position.
I've been doing it without. The counties work hard. The counties go to town, and then they just get locked up at the ceiling that's placed right above their heads at the state level. And I'm hoping to just blow that to smithereens. But what I was going to say is every single county I've gone to, I don't know, 14 or 15 counties now. And I'm going to be hitting almost every single county until February 22nd. But every single time, the very first thing I say, the very first thing that comes out of my mouth, raise your hand if you think our elections are legit. And not one single Republican PCP or visitor to those meetings, those central committee meetings, has raised their hand to say that our elections are legit. And so if our elections aren't legit and they're stealing our elections, I tell them this. That's what the Second Amendment was made for. Okay. Yeah. So we have to really like have a frank discussion about what we're willing to do. Are we going to allow them to just enslave us? Because if they're determining the outcomes of our elections, we're slaves, period. Right. That's what we are. They take our money. We work our asses off. They take our money, give it to themselves. And then we're the slaves because they keep getting reelected by themselves. That is not the fucking United States of America.
Not at all. And what kills me is they look at you in the face and they say, well, if you don't like it, run your own candidates, knowing that the system is rigged and acting like, yes, we're your representatives, when you know damn well no one up in Salem, including most of the Republicans these days, are representing us in Salem. So I don't know what the hell they're talking about when they say that, because when you have a fixed election and you know that the results are rigged, how can they say I have representation and anything they're passing is legitimate? And we know this just by what we've experienced in Coos County, just what we've experienced here.
Yeah, and we need to have commissioners stand up. We need to have sheriffs stand up. We need sheriffs to say, no, we're going to have hand-counted ballots, ID at the precinct level, period, in-person voting. We're gonna deputize 400 citizens, come and fight us, state government. It's not going to happen, or dare them to do it and be ready for it all the way to the end, because that's what this is about. So that's what NBBM is really about. We know we can't vote our way out of a rigged election system, but we do believe we can get it on the ballot. And if they prevent us from getting it on the ballot, we do know that we can make that national news if they change the rules on us to prevent us from getting on the ballot. So either way, by taking this action, the Democrats in Salem, Kotek and sleazy, oh my gosh, the new Attorney General. That guy's he's an
Tobias Reed. Is it Tobias Reed?
Secretary of State, Dan Rayfield. Dan Rayfield, the guy that literally got me deplatformed on Meta. He was the quote they used for my fact check that pulled me off the whole platform when I was talking about the number of registrations removed from Multnomah County in the last 4 years. The number was 6. And so that's what got me deplatformed on Instagram. I mean, and Facebook. I had like 25,000, 30,000 followers. So anyway, Dan Rayfield, the guy who did that, is now our Attorney General. We have to negotiate with him. So we'll see how this plays out. But this is what NBBM is all about. We need to create a West Coast movement to where the Washington state, the Oregon state, and the California state, we all have our own versions of this attack on vote by mail, so that because the door is open with the Trump administration and the majority in Congress in DC. So we need to get attention. There's things that the president can do for us. We can't just change the Constitution without a 3/4 majority to outright ban or have the federal government determine the state election system fundamentally. That's illegal. We don't have enough for that. We may not get that, but there's things that can happen. We also need to make sure that people really understand what's happening, because Democrats are scratching their head in Multnomah County going, no, we don't know anybody that voted for these people. We wanted the moderate guy. We wanted Rene Gonzalez. We wanted Dan. Oh my gosh, my brain is going south on me today. Anyway, a couple other the good moderate Portland area commissioners. They didn't get him. We have a bunch of Joanne Hardesty's at this point. And so they're all scratching their heads. So they're open to going, this doesn't look right. Maybe these Republican conspiracy theorists are correct yet again. And so I think there's opportunity here.
And I think you're absolutely right, because that's what's going to happen when you eliminate your competition, the Republicans. Then the Democrats, they're going to have to turn and face themselves. And they're going to, like you said, there's going to be moderate Democrats who are looking at the system, realizing they're being cut out just as badly as the Republicans are being cut out, because there is the radical left that is pulling the party further and further to the left. And the only way they can do that is by unfair voting. So I am hoping you are absolutely right. And I think you are, that there are going to be Democrats who are going to say, whoa, wait a minute, they're screwing us too. Let's get behind this vote by mail. Let's clean these voter rolls. Let's do something,
Yeah, and right now our largest amount of senators are actually coming out of Multnomah County through our Multnomah County director, who lives off of Hawthorne and 30th. So it's like, the area. It's like, hippie town over there, man.
Yep.
So they're not nothing against hippies, but I'm just saying that's where they're at. You think those are the really far left folks, but it's not really true. They're the ones paying the price. And now the far left leaders of the Democrat Party, they live in Dunthorpe. Okay, they live in Lake Oswego. They're no longer rubbing elbows with the plebeians on the east side of Portland. The plebeians are just the victims of the Kool-Aid that they've been drinking, and that they've been fed. And so I think they're starting to wake up. I had a bunch of Democrats, especially prominent ones, call me up on election night, the day after election night, and say to me, I'm telling you, because it's your show, verbatim, that didn't just fucking happen. There's no way.
Wow.
And when that happened to me, I was actually invigorated. I was filled with energy, and I was energized, and I was like, oh my God, this is great. I can take the gloves off.
Yeah, and you can.
Let's go.
So what was it? Because there's a lot of things you could have done. You could have done, there's a couple of initiatives that you could have done to clean up the voter rolls. There's one you could have done about that postmark thing and but you chose the vote by mail. Why, of all the issues in the voter registration anomalies, why did you choose that one?
That's a great question, because I had a lot of people especially the political operatives, some county chairs, they came at me pretty hard saying this was bad. I got even some of the most reputable state reps on the Republican side called me and said, stop doing this. Don't do this. This is not smart. And I said, you challenge it right now, and I'm all open-minded about it, because I want to go the smartest direction, the smartest route. But every single one of them wanted to dilute the problem. They didn't want to go directly at it. Now, one of my heroes from history is Ulysses S. Grant. And Ulysses S. Grant came in the war late. He was a drunkard, kind of like myself. He was a ne'er-do-well. He didn't, he was a general, but he was sort of a problem child general. And nobody really gave him a lot of respect. He was also broke. A lot of things in common because he cared about fighting the fight. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
They were getting kind of desperate. The North was, and so they brought in Ulysses S. Grant, and Ulysses S. Grant was kind of crazy. Like he just had this simple strategy, which was you go find the enemy and you fight them where they're at. And so he would grab his armies if they had more guys or less guys. He didn't really care. He goes, they're over here. Let's go fight them. And so that's what he did. And what he did is he ended up chasing Confederates all around the South, beating the shit out of them. And all these aristocratic, highly educated Northern generals of the day were sitting there, not in the fight, and talking about, oh my God, how's he doing this? And he did it real simply. He goes right at the problem. He goes right at the enemy. And by going directly at the enemy, we're going to be bold. We're going to say we're done. This is the gateway to election fraud, to mass election fraud. This is the gateway to enable the government to determine the outcomes of our elections. And so we're going to go right at it, and we're just going to throw out all the things that are wrong with it, and we're going to challenge it to the core. Because why would we go fight the symptoms when the source of the cancer is right there? The tumor is right there. Remove the tumor.
Yep.
Why are you don't take Advil when you have cancer. Remove the freaking tumor. Okay, so that's what we're going to do. We're going to go take the tumor out of Oregon and Washington and hopefully California.
And it doesn't matter whether you do or not. The fight is worth having because it's a valiant fight. And I don't get people who go, well, you're going to lose. Well, if I didn't fight for what I thought was right on the basis that I might lose, I never would have got up this morning or any other day. So
this country would have never been founded. Do you think the founders of this country sat there and they thought, you know what? We're going up against Britain, guys. I mean, they're the most powerful nation on this earth. They got the largest military on this earth, and they kill people for fucking shits and giggles. And so you want to go fight them when we got nothing? And they're like, yeah. Because you know why they did it? Because they knew where their power came from. And what I'm doing by running for ORP chair, by running NBBM, and I'm reminding all of us to stop and think about where you get your power. I see this in politics all the time. People think that they get their power from me. People think they get their power from David Brocksmith. People think they get their power from the Real Ed Deal. Look, nobody gets your power. You get your power from another man. That man can take it away. The reason no one's been able to take my power away is because I don't get it from a man. Okay, I get it from a source higher than government, and that's what we're going to use. That's what the founding father used. They called it God. Okay, that was the language that they used. And whether you believe in it or not, I don't care, because it's the power greater than the government. There's always a power greater than the government. And that's where they got their source. And so they had trust in that, and they went forward and they won. And that's what happens. And so we wouldn't have a country if people sat around being afraid of looking at the map. We got to stop looking at the map. We got to go at the problem and attack it. And
Absolutely,
up the army.
absolutely. Well, you heard the story that I did on the intro talking about Trump and Colombia and how he was playing golf and made a call. And in the old days, with they like I said, they would have to get a task force, and it would take weeks to name the task force and pick the. You know what I'm talking about. But no, Trump, he tweets, and within an hour before he gets to the fifth hole.
Yeah, now 80% of Canadians are like, maybe we should be the 51st state.
Maybe that's not such a bad idea. I know Greenland is like, I don't know,
Greenland's like going, one soul to the United States of America. But Trump knows where he gets his power from. See, and when he got shot in the face or in the ear, okay, it woke him up. His ego was gone. He said he still had it, right? I believe that what happened with Trump in the last cycle where he lost. He believed that he was doing it. He believed that he was the power. He's not. Yeah. When that bullet grazed his ear, and had he known that he came millimeters away from losing his life, he walked into that RNC convention a different man. He was calm. He was poised. He knew where his power came from. He knew it wasn't him, and he walked up in there and he took it. And he's still to this day. I watched him as he signed all these executive orders, and it was so cool because I was in DC when that was happening. I was watching it, and he's just like, "Oh, this is a good one. Oh, this is a good one." He was himself. He was humble. He was joyful. He was free, and that's where he gets his power. That's why nobody was able to take down Trump. That's why nobody knows how many punches Trump can take. To this day, nobody knows because there isn't any number he can take. He can take infinite number of punches because he knows where he gets his power from. We were worried. We were worried that he wasn't even going to get elected, not because we didn't think he had the votes or the support, was because that the steal hadn't been fixed from 2020. I think really the reason that it didn't go through this time was the fact that we were wide awake and there were a lot of people watching this stuff. What is your thoughts on that? Well, so look, there was some very specific things that were learned from the 2020. Everybody, the media and the left and the moderate center, everybody was like, there was no standing for any of Trump's cases. Like there was no standing. There was no evidence. They didn't have enough evidence. That's a falsehood. It's a lie. Standing in court is jurisdiction. Right. So if the lack of standing was because this was a state court issue being challenged in federal court. And so Trump would have had to take his cases to state court, but he knew that all the state courts in these swing districts, swing states, were all Democrat run, Democrat governors, Democrat legislators, Democrat judicial branch. And so he knew that he wouldn't have a chance in state court even to be, to win these cases. So they had to try to angle it into federal court because that way you would get a legitimate constitutional judge. But none of those cases were heard. There was not one shred of evidence ever shown to a judge in all of Trump's 2020 cases. So that is what standing means. It didn't mean he didn't have evidence. He had a shit ton of evidence. So we had the same problem with our cases, but this time it was different. This time, going into the election cycle, every one of these swing states were slapped with major lawsuits so that they were under the judicial microscope on the court of record. Leading up to the election, and that stopped truckloads of invalid ballots from being counted in Arizona, in all across these swing states, Pennsylvania, boom, you name it. So there was a lot of lawsuits going into it ahead of time in state court with standing that protected too many ballots being counted. And on top of that, we made it too big to rig. But on the West Coast, there's no way to make it too big to rig. They start counting ballots as they arrive. They're tracking who's voting for who, and they're infusing enough ballots into the system before election day, long before anybody knows anything. Okay, that's the problem on the West Coast. That's what they're doing. You cannot make it too big to rig. And that's the problem, part of the problem with vote by mail, because just by the nature of the process, you're voting, they're receiving ballots, like you said, 2 weeks before the actual election. And at that point, like you said, they can figure up the numbers, who's voting, and from just their party registration and how they have voted in the past, because they don't know your actual vote, but they can tell that who's winning and who's not winning by how many Republicans and by how many Democrats go in. They just go in, knock down that percentage, and they're going to town.
Ashley Hicks. I don't know if you know Ashley, but she says, can you talk about your perspective of voting online? I've heard people say they'd vote if it were easier to vote. Do you think that's the future of elections, or is that overzealous?
Yeah, I've heard people talk about voting via blockchain and some of these things, but I'll tell you right now, the end of our system is going to be electronic voting. That's it. Because if you think it's bad now, wait till it's like,
Yep.
it's all code. And because with programming, you can easily go confirm that you voted for who you voted for and see it all on your side, but you have no idea what actually happened.
Right.
And that's what's happening right now. The more we are electronically counting our ballots, the more our voting system goes into the technological space, the less we can even see what's really going on or compare with the paper ballot. So I would say that that's one part of your question. The other thing is it's an assumption. It sounds like your question. It's a good question, but in the question is that I've heard people say they'd vote if it was easier. I got to ask you something. Do you want people who don't know what the fuck they're doing to vote? No, because they don't know what they're voting for. When you see the ads on TV, they were like, everyone's going to get $3,500 a year from the state. Just vote yes on whatever that measure was.
Right.
It doesn't even tell you on the TV that it's going to cost you $40,000 more a year just to live. Okay, pay your electric bill, get your groceries, fuel, all that stuff. So they don't tell you that part. So this is ignorant voting doesn't help society. But here's where I think we do need to grow, and this is where I think our parties, especially the Republican Party, is really doing it wrong. We need to grow the party. Okay, we need to bring people into the Republican Party, and so that more people are educated voters, more people have a group. There's always people that who's my friend that's a Republican PCP? Oh yeah, Jimmy. Jimmy always knows who to vote for. Let me ask Jimmy, and I'll vote. I'll kind of vote what he says, or I'll ask my other friends and see what they say. I get that question 1,000 times in elections. Ben, who do we vote for? And these are like people that follow me. So it's not easy to know what you're voting for. If you understand politics, then great, vote. If you don't go to the trouble. Let somebody else vote that understands it. And that means, Mike Neerman, my friend Mike, he used to say, Ben, there's about 2% of the population that actually knows what's going on and what they're voting for on both sides, okay, of the spectrum, the left and the right. And he goes, 98% of them are Seahawks fans. Like they don't know. They don't know. And so those 98% is how you win elections. And so it's all propaganda.
And you could say that about the Seahawks because you are a Seahawk fan, correct? Didn't you?
No,
weren't you a Seahawk fan?
No, I was raised by, my dad came from San Jose, man. So I've been a Niners fan, but Portland, Seattle, there's a rivalry, Sonics, and Blazers. I kind of like Seattle. I think Seattle, I'm like, yeah, screw you. I don't like Seattle.
Hey, do you know Anita? She says, hi, dear.
I do not know her.
Well, she's being very nice. Thank you, Anna.
She sure is.
Jeannie says the Washington County clerk did not know what she said. Those in the courtroom from election integrity gasped when she said it. So much the judge threatened to expel us. My favorite part that day. So she was there. I guess Jeannie went in.
Yeah, Jeannie. Yeah. How you doing, Jeannie? Good to see you.
Yeah. You got a lot of supporters, a lot of the same groups that I hang out with, a lot of the same people I hang out with. But there were a couple of people who contacted me and they basically said this was stupid. This is stupid. What are you doing wasting your time on this? This is stupid. We should be doing other things. And here's my problem with people who get mad. Every initiative really is stupid in its own way because a lot of the initiatives that the Republicans put forward are never going to go anywhere. I loved when Dinah Kreitzberg did the school choice ballots. I supported that. I went out and I tried to get people's signatures, but you know what? I figured it wasn't going to pass at the ballot. You know what I mean? I figured even if we got it on the ballot, and I don't know why we didn't because there was a lot of money in that campaign, but they should have got that on the ballot. They're going to come back again, they said, but I don't think it will pass because Oregon's, we got a bunch of idiots here. And I still believe it was a well worth the fight. Number one is it's an action item. And we're going to set up booths like for your petition here. And one of the things that we ask people to do is to come out, sign the petition, because people want to get this done. People love the vote by mail and ending it. They love ending that stuff. They know the election is screwed up. So once we get the people to the booth, and we've got several real good locations here in Coos County to do that booth, we're not only going to talk about the petition, then we can talk about the May election. Then we can talk about building the party. Then we can start recruiting people for PCPs. And I don't understand people who don't understand you need a grab. You need something, that's why they put candy bars right next to the cash register. That's what people are going to grab for. That's what you want them to buy. And you want them to do that because that's going to bring them in.
Well, and we got, in just about a month of doing this, we've got 300 volunteers statewide. We've got county directors in counties representing about 75% of the state population. And the county directors are kicking ass and taking names. And people are just fired up about this because, look, it's true. I'm calling you to a kamikaze mission. I'm asking you to fly the plane into the battleship and leave a hole, okay? And the thing about politics is, which is it's one step before physical combat, right? You got politics, then you got physical combat. So in politics, you can fly the plane into the battleship and then live and not even be hurt to go fly the plane into the battleship the next day. And so why are we not flying planes into the battleship? And so why are we not chasing our enemy around like Ulysses S. Grant? Why are we not going after our freedom like the founders of our country did? We've got the backup. We've got the Second Amendment. It's there. It's the Second Amendment for a reason. And so we know we better start talking out loud about it, and we better start saying that it's on the table as an option. Because otherwise our negotiations are going to break down politically. The reason why everybody around the world does what Trump says is because Trump will punch him in the mouth. Right. He'll leave blood. And that's the thing. And so it's not about, look, in politics, I've learned this. I've been doing politics for 5 years. I'm not just your average activist. I'm in politics. I'm the elected Republican nominee for 4 years in my district, Senate and state rep. And I've taken that election seriously. Right behind my head are the bona fide election documents from the state.
Nice. Nice.
I put them there to remind people that I'm still representing the Republicans that elected me to represent them. I don't care where I do it from. Okay, I'm doing it from right here. But they love that I represent them. So we got to understand that, in politics, what I've learned is that people don't do the right thing. Most people in politics are greasy, narcissistic bastards. They really are. There's very few people I've met. I got a short list of politicians that I'm like, you're legit. You're there for the right reasons. You're a good person. You're a good man. You're a good woman. Even Democrats have good men and women that are elected to office. They may not be as strong as I'd like them to be, but they're good. And there's a difference there. Most of the people in politics are dirtbags, and dirtbags don't do the right thing unless they have to. Okay,
unless they have to.
Tina Kotek, Dan Rayfield, Tobias Reed, these guys are dirtbags. They're the biggest dirtbags. They're the biggest narcissists in the state of Oregon. They're not going to do the right thing unless you force them to their knees. And so we have to use the things that we have. And right now, the situation on our battlefield is that we know for a fact that when we get this thing on the ballot, that's the victory. When we get NBBM on the ballot, we're going to force Kotek and Reed and Rayfield to prove that our elections are legit. And they're not going to do it because they can't. And we know they can't. So that's not a fair fight. That is a fight that's our advantage. So why are we not going all in on this fight? Because that's where we have the advantage. They cannot prove. All they can say is voting in Oregon feels good. That's all they got.
And it doesn't really feel good because I voted in Oregon. It doesn't. They're lying with that too. Marty Kurt.
Vote if they require ID because black people don't have ID.
And then they're racist. Yeah, that's the most racist thing to say. Oh, poor black people and poor Mexicans. They just too stupid to go out there and get IDs.
Black kids can't learn how to read, so we have to not teach reading and math because it hurts black people's feelings.
Which is ridiculous. I believe that there were there are plenty of black people who have achieved in academia beyond belief, and it's insulting when Democrats do this kind of crap.
I'm an academic abysmal failure, and I'm white as you can get.
So Marty Kurt, he says, we didn't put the stop turbines on the ballot because it would keep them from building them. We wanted to show public sentiment. And that was an advisory question because of that exact reason. We wanted to show the governor of Oregon and the federal government that the people of Coos and Curry did not want these turbines. We won that 60% here in Coos, 80% in Curry. It's rare you see 80% of the people agreeing on something.
Listen, you got it all wrong, man. It was all David Brock Smith because he chief sponsored the bill in order to not have the turbines actually get installed off the coast of Coos Bay. And when they didn't do it, it was all because of him. I thought you knew that. Come on, man. Marty, I thought you knew that, bro.
I'm sorry. I forgot. Yes. The wind blows because of DDS. And that's
you're exactly right. And you know what happened? What happened in the end was it had zero support. It not only had you brought together the people and you made every single sleazy politician who was involved in trying to put those windmills out on the coast. You had egg all over their face, and the best thing they could tell themselves while they sucked their thumb at night to fall asleep is that they all did it just to make it end in the first place. They were all about the people, and then night.
Yep. That's the way they behaved as well. Marty then goes on. He makes another comment. He says, VBM would send a huge message if you got hundreds of thousands of signatures. And I agree. That's the thing. Whether it wins or loses, the fact you're fighting the battle, you're willing to fight the battle, you're able to show that there is an overwhelming percentage of people. It may not be the majority. It may not even be 50%, but I guarantee you 40 to 50% of the people in Oregon are tired of what's going on in our elections.
Yeah, Marty, you're exactly correct. It sends a message, and it also sends a smoke signal for help. People, we talk about this with the ORP. I've been going around having these 4D checkers. I love you, Marty. Cheers
underwater.
Yeah, but we have this. Nobody invests. So anyway, going back around to the ORP race, and I'm sitting here with these other guys that are running for and gals that are running for ORP. They're all good people. They got great ideas. Nothing wrong with any of them. But the big challenge is raising money. Like, we can't raise any money. How do we raise money? Well, I can do it by doing this, and I think we should do it by doing this. But if you take all those symptomatic things away, it's the same thing with NBBM or anything else. If you don't go out there and show that something can be successful, show that you have the courage, the character to make a go out of it, nobody's going to come in and fund you. Okay. As an entrepreneur, I learned that. Like, I had to get as far as I could with a company, with a business, with a technology, whatever it might be, a product, as far as I could get before the investors would come in and start writing checks. Like, they come in to write checks when that's all you need. You got everything else done. And so, no one's going to come in and fund the Oregon Republican Party because the Oregon Republican Party doesn't matter. It's not even in the fight. It doesn't even. It's like off somewhere off screen.
We're fighting with each other. We fight with each other more than we fight with others. And this is a perfect example. We fight with our
representatives, and then we have people that are like, no, I'm behind David Brocksmith, and I'm behind this person, but they're not. They're playing for their team. And so you that's who we're fighting. It's like all from the top, right? If you eliminate that fight and you draw a line in the sand, you say everybody gets a free pass. What I'm going to do if I'm elected on day one, I'm going to say, here's the line. Everybody's forgiven. We're not the sum of our mistakes. That's not who we are. We're going to give everybody a chance. Because look, even David Brock Smith, he brought SB 11 or whatever it is, that the end of vote by mail. Of course, it's never going to make it out of committee, but I appreciate the gesture. I really do. But we're going to draw a line in the sand, and we're going to say, now is the chance to step over on this side of the line and get on this side of football. And everyone's forgiven for everything they've ever done. Now, going forward, if you play for the other team one time, I'm going to make you famous on social media for doing it as the chair of the ORP. If you do it a second time, you're going to get primaried with the full backing and support of the ORP. That's it. You get two chances. One, you get slapped in the mouth. Two, we pull your ass out of office. So that's it, right? But you got to have that clean slate. And I think if we have that clean slate and there's some actual power behind it, then we might see some change and we might get some fight going on out of our party. I think that's super important.
Now, could you imagine if David Brock Smith, if he was smart, I don't know, maybe if he was really thinking, he would go, I'm going to call Ben Edtl and I'm going to say, let's make a truce. And I've got my bill, the end vote by mail measure that I'm trying to get through the legislature. You and I know it's not going to go anywhere, but he did it. He put it in there. He should come out and say, but I want to do a little bit extra and I want to support your initiative. And I want people in my area to sign this and all across the state. This is what Republicans should be doing for each other. And then all the other representatives should be doing the same. We support David Brock Smith's bill, but we know it's not going to go anywhere. So we want to put our efforts behind the vote for BBM. But instead, they are still ticked off from previous battles infighting. And instead of moving forward, united, being strong, being relevant, because the party, like you said, is lost all relevancy. If we could get that and then get all the chairs from the counties to say, you know what, we're going to have this petition at all of our headquarters, in all of our meetings, and we're going to be promoting it. And we're going to be doing those booths like other counties are doing, like we're going to be doing here in Coos County. You could get this done within a year. I think don't you have like a 2-year timetable on this?
We do, yeah. We could get it done. That's it. Like we got to get 1,000 signatures, but there's like 2,700 PCPs or whatever. Or 27,000. I can't remember the number, but we could send it out to them and have it overnight. Like if the party actually utilized itself to do stuff, it could do NBBN and a bunch of other things. You know, and you're exactly right. You know, you as a leader of an organization, I've been a CEO and an entrepreneur, and currently I'm a CEO of a transportation district. Now I'm a CEO of a government agency. So I'm a leader of organizations, and one thing I've learned as a leader is you don't stand in the way of good ideas. For crying out loud, get out of the way. People have
take credit for them. You take credit for them. That's what you do.
Yeah. Well, I'm like, hey, I get people that are so like, you don't answer my calls. Well, I don't. And like I said when I first got here, I'm not going to be the one to save this district. You are. And guess what? They saved the district because I untied all their hands and gave them the ability to be self-correcting. And that's what a leader should do. That's a big part of being a leader. Just untie everybody's hands, okay? And so, but yeah, you can take a big initiative and then you can have all these other things happening as well at the same time. The ORP is a big organization. They can do a lot more than it thinks. But I agree with you. I think David Brock Smith, in a way, I do believe in a way that he's given us the head nod by bringing that bill. We all know that it's never going to come out of committee, but the fact that he did it was a gesture that is acceptable. Now, I'll tell you something about me. Now, when I was a kid growing up, I made some of my best friends by getting into fistfights with them. I hate to admit it, but we would get in a fight, and I'd be like, and he'd be like, let's be friends. Let's be friends. I'm always open to friendship. I'm always open to building coalition. I don't care what someone's done to me. Look, Gabe is a good friend of mine. Gabe's gone to every one of my personal relationships and has tried to sell them on the idea that I'm a shifty, no good piece of shit, lying grifter. And it hurts my feelings, yes. But I don't care. He's already forgiven. He's a good leader. He's strong. He's done great stuff with Washington County. He's got a future in the Republican Party. Like, let's put principles before personalities. You know what I'm saying? Like, why are we not? Now, if a guy like David Brock Smith goes off and he votes for the most communist bills you could possibly support, and he decides that, I'm not going to do that anymore, great. I don't have any more questions for him. I'll support him in every way until that happens again. So we all paid the price. He cost him $250,000 to keep his seat. We spent 17. He walked away battered and bruised, and I walked away battered and bruised. We all did. But I think we won that fight. And I think when you just admit the truth, we can all move on and we can go fight together the real enemy, or at least who the real enemy should be. But we're never, ever going to overcome the biggest barrier that we face, which is the leaders of our own party who play for our opponents. We'll never get over that. So we have to decide what we're going to do. We have to ask ourselves, who are we and what are we about? And we better define it, and then we better live it.
Michcaela sent me this. This is an article from Coin TV. Let me see if I can get that up on the screen. It says Oregon Rep. Andrea Salinas introduces national vote by mail bill. It was almost like she was reading your mind there, Ben.
Yeah, so funny. Of course, Andrew Salinas. Vote by mail works really, really great because you can totally determine the outcomes. But I have a real strong feeling that the Republicans are going to say no to this one.
I got a feeling that's going to go anywhere. Let me scroll on down and let me read a little bit from it. It says, for nearly 30 years, Oregonians have had the option to vote by mail. Now, one Oregon representative wants to bring that right across the nation. On Friday, Oregon Congresswoman Andrea Salinas introduced the Universal Right to Vote by Mail Act, which would ensure that all eligible voters in the United States have the option to vote. Now, if you read this article, I'm not going to, but if you read down the article, it actually tells you that it doesn't tell you that since Oregon has been a vote by mail state, that we've also been a Democrat far left state since the process has begun.
It also starts off with an absolute blatant lie, and this is Coin News, right? So Coin knows this. Whoever wrote that article at Coin News should be ashamed of themselves. You should be in total shame because you started it off with a blatant lie that says that Oregonians have the option to vote by mail. Voting by mail is the only legal way to conduct elections in Oregon. It is illegal to conduct in-person elections in the state of Oregon, and that is the fact of the matter. So that Coin News journalist should just go find a new profession, because that's the most blatant lie you can possibly say. It's just completely untrue. You don't have an option. You have to do it by mail. You receive your ballot by mail, and here's why this is the issue. This is what makes it so bad. What most people don't realize is the chain of custody before ballots are ever sent out to the voters. They have to make hundreds of thousands of ballots above the number of eligible voters in the state of Oregon, because you got to make sure there's enough, and if there's a replacements or losses, all this stuff. Then about 80% or whatever of the people turn out, which I don't believe that is the case, but that's what generally happens, about the same every time, 70 to 80%. And so then they've got hundreds of thousands of millions of ballots that are being shipped to different USPS warehouses that then sit in the USPS warehouses, and then those can be pulled. If you've ever been in politics, you know, because like if I ordered 20,000 door hangers, okay, I can fit that in the back of my Audi Q3. It's like maybe a 4 square feet of space. So if you think about 20,000 ballots, it's about 4 square feet of space. So anybody can grab a box of 2,000 ballots and just walk out the door with them when they're sitting there at the USPS. Anybody. Anybody who's a postal service person or anything, they can just grab. Any politician or any campaign operative or any party operative can walk in there and grab a box and walk out. And those are legitimate ballots. And the only thing that is there is a signature verification in which the Secretary of State has the digital images of everybody's signature through the DMV, even if they're dead. So when dead ballots come in, it's going to be an exact match. And we've seen it. We saw it this last election, multiple ballots where the signature was an exact photograph image, perfect mirror image of the signature.
Dr. Frank, in one of his images on his PowerPoint, he shows where they take the image of the signature and the image of the signature on the ballot. And this is a woman who's been dead for a long time. And they compared the signatures of the current ballot against her old signature, and it was an exact match. It was incredible how somebody did an incredible job, or maybe it's just being digitally reproduced. I don't know. It's very strange.
It's super crazy. It's the exact copy. It's a carbon copy. That's not a handwritten signature. We know that's obvious. Now, here's the other thing that's crazy. You can't even get the ballot images in Oregon. And when you're observing the elections, you can't even take pictures. So when you see these things coming across, the only reason we found them in 2024 is we had somebody in there with the spy glasses on without a camera right there between the eyes. And that's how we caught it. Because otherwise they never would have got a camera in unless you had a hidden camera. So they broke the law to go in there and find those anomalies. And so that's one of hundreds of thousands of millions of votes that are coming through Clackamas County. So you got to understand, there's a company in Bend that prints the ballots, that makes the ballots, and then sends them out. That company in Bend has all the ballots. They got to do it. It's like, let's have a private company make our money, and it's like, next thing you know, they're going to be selling money out the back door, aren't they?
Actually, don't we have a private company called the Federal Reserve who makes our money? I think we do, huh? And that's not going too well either.
Yeah,
but
not corrupt.
Yeah, that's not corrupt at all.
Yeah.
Hey, did you hear in Coos County, our county clerk, there was a mishap? And by the way, we got to check back to find out whose fault it was. It was either the county's clerk's fault or the printer's fault that 940 some odd ballots did not get out. And she had to make a notice of that without telling the commissioner. She didn't even bother telling the commissioner. She went straight to the reporters, and because she was covering her ass. And of course, we made a big stink of it, showing, well, there you go. This proves that there are fallibilities. And so I was in the office, and there were 3 people in line who were part of the 900 who didn't receive ballots, who were getting their ballot, and they didn't have to show one ID. All they gave her was their name and their birth date, and she gave them a brand new ballot. That was it. Didn't ask them who they were, no ID, whatever.
Yep. No, it's crazy. It's so crazy. If you go to nbbm.com/FAQ, there's a list of like all the laws over time that created our election system, and one of those is that if you just go / I don't have a link to it right now, but it's nbbm.com/FAQ, and there's a list being developed right now that has all the election laws since the 80s. And you can actually see in a timeline, in a chronological order, the full direction of our election system. And in that, they have these laws that they passed in the 90s and stuff that say like, well, if you voter registration, you have to have a social security number, but then you can do it electronically, and all you need is the last 4. Or if the birth date isn't present, that's okay. They don't need a birth date or an address. So then we had some in 2018, there was one, or 2019, there was one where it said where you didn't have to have an address to register to vote because of homeless people. And so now they got all these it's so crazy. You don't even have to have complete information. Like, you couldn't even get on a Greyhound bus without that. You couldn't get on, it's so crazy to me. So, and I know we've said it a million times, but it truly is. When you stop and think about how insecure our systems are, it's actually done by design and on purpose.
Yeah,
it's purposefully developed this way.
Marty says in Coos County, you are allowed to watch the back of the monitor where they are verified. I don't know if you've seen that. They're looking at a computer like I'm looking at a computer, and you get to sit on the other side of the computer and watch them look at a computer screen that you can't see. Yeah, that's monitoring.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, it's purely insane. And you're talking the 985 ballots. There were thousands of ballots this last election in Clackamas County that had incorrect barcodes. So you know what they did? They took thousands of ballots, and they actually had election workers copy one to another and then staple it. And so I'm sure that went really well too. I'm sure there was nobody that was like, whoop.
Yep. So we're still fighting. Because it's USPS and they're federal.
Yeah.
We've got a FOIA out, and we're trying to get first we asked them questions, and they said, as a federal agency, we don't have to answer your questions or produce any documents. So then we had to reword it so that we can get the documents to show that we can answer the question that we needed. You know how they are. And I love that. I'm not sure why someone doesn't pass a law saying that when we ask a freaking question, we want a freaking answer. I don't know why that isn't law.
Yeah. It's wild. It's wild, man. We're in a box canyon. How do you fight your way out of a box canyon? You can't see in, you can't see out. You're stuck. There's only one way out. It's the Second Amendment. We need to take every single action we can before that action is taken.
Absolutely.
And I think there's a lot of stops along the way. I think that when we amplify the reality of our election systems in Oregon, Washington, California, we're going to create a lot of demand for in-person elections. If we create a lot of demand for in-person elections with hand-counted ballots at the precinct level, sheriffs will have the political capital to say, nope, we're going to deputize 500,000 citizens, and we're going to have in-person elections. Despite the state law, we're going to break state law. We're going to make sure that in this county, we know we can guarantee to the vote what happened, and that everyone on both sides can trust it. And we can pull that. But that leads to the next step on the county side, where more and more counties happen. That's how you have a revolution. And if the state is forced to maintain their power, the Tina Kotex, these dictators, these tyrants of the world, they're going to be pitched with the decision to use force to maintain their power. And when they do that, that's when we use our Second Amendment. That's how I see it happening. But I think it's really, really important that we do everything we can to prevent that from happening, and that we do it while we're emboldened with the federal backing of our federal government. Our federal government will support us in this effort. Our federal government knows what we're up against on the West Coast.
And the thing is that this also, once again, will force many of the Republican representatives who are always trying to move left themselves to try to pull them right. This is the other reason why these initiatives are good, because it does put a little bit of a leash on these representatives, and they can't go too far from this initiative, because what are they going to say? What is, any of the regular representatives or senators? Oh, well, we're not for getting rid of vote by mail. We like having the fraud and the deceit and the lack of transparency. I mean, what can they really say? So that's a second reason for doing these these initiatives. Whether they win at the ballot is irrelevant. The fact that you're fighting the fight and you're bringing these guys back over to your side, that's one of the major parts of this.
It really is. And, I remember working on with James Heath on his campaign for re-election, and he was challenged by Christine Drazen. And when RecPac was exposing David Brocksmith's voting record, it was incredible to me just how weak he was. He was so scared that he had to work next to this guy. He had to work with these Democrats. Like, I got to work in the same building. Like, I can't just vehemently oppose their nonsense. And I'm sitting here thinking, well, then you're not strong enough for politics. Period.
Right.
You're not strong enough for it.
Right.
Like, you have to be able to fight and then go look in the eyes of your enemy and then continue to fight. Warriors sometimes have to cut the heads off of their enemies, and it isn't pretty and it isn't nice. In fact, it's violent and awful. And in fact, anybody who's been a veteran of war, they'll say the good guys, you still have to do bad things. And again, I've said this before, politics is one step before physical combat. It's the one thing that prevents it if it's successful. And so how in the world is that an excuse? How is it an excuse? You have to show up and fight. And sometimes it's up close and personal. But if you don't have the stones for it, then get out of that job. And so that's what I see with our Republicans sometimes, is they just feel outnumbered, but they're outnumbered because there's too many cowards. And
they don't have a backbone. They don't have a backbone.
Yeah, exactly. You got to strengthen their backbone. But that's what I try to do. I want to strengthen their backbone. And when DBS bring in the end vote by mail bill, hey, maybe we strengthen his backbone. And if that's the case, hallelujah.
Good. Yeah, that's nothing but good. Nothing really, in essence, I don't see really, other than we lose a ballot, big deal, who cares? We've lost before. Other than that, there is no downside to this. They act like we can't chew gum and walk at the same time. We can do these initiatives and we can fight for the next election coming up, which is going to be the special districts election that's happening in May. And by the way, I think it's February 9th. That is the registration date for all candidates. We're trying to find candidates. And you were just talking about Republicans with no backbone. We went out of our way to make sure a couple of Republicans were elected to the Bandon School District. And sure as hell, they passed a tax, an excise tax on all permitting fees just past June. We didn't even know. And the reason I didn't know is because I thought I had these gatekeepers on the school district who were going to get me when they were going to do these controversial votes, but they didn't get me, and they voted for it. It was a unanimous vote. And then you're going to love this. 2 of the Republicans go, can that be retro? Yeah, too bad it wasn't retro. And I'm sitting there going, these are our guys. What the hell, man?
Yeah, it's crazy. Well, I can tell you, I'm unfortunately, I'm government now, right? So
yep.
We have our board meetings, we look at these financial statements, and we're like, dude, we have dilapidated stuff. It's all like, the service, our buses are crap. The whole system's a kind of a joke. It's not very well operated.
Right.
But there's not enough funding. And when I look at it, I'm like, okay, we spend $500,000 a year at least just on administration to serve compliance requests by ODOT and the FTA, federal government. So I work in transportation. And I'm like, I think regulation on government agencies is good because it's a government agency. But it's gotten to the point where every dollar costs you 30%,
right?
Just in compliance response and paperwork and in documentation. And I think it's really important that we reduce a little bit of that or do it in a smart way, because you got to have regulation on government agencies. But what happens is that you get the wrong people in charge, which is what we had at the Umpqua Public Transportation District. We had someone who's the GM who's just the wrong person in the wrong seat. She never should have been a GM anywhere. It's just not her. She wasn't cut out for that job. She wasn't made to do that job. And so, $1 million in reserves was blown through. And, the commissioners in Douglas County have the same. I think they blew through $30 million in reserve. And I think a lot of that is just corruption. But in the case of Umpqua Transportation, it was just incompetence. She just didn't know what she was doing. And so we now are in this position where you're like, oh my God, the only way to do this is to tax, because you can't fix the system. But so I can see how people will easily go that direction, but that's not the solution. The problem really comes from the state, because the state is stealing so much money from education, stealing so much money from transportation, that the special districts, the transportation districts that are funded by the state that serve local communities are getting fucked. And the same thing with the local schools. They're getting fucked. I'm sorry about the bad word, but that's what's happening. And the fat cats up in Salem, they're literally taking billions of dollars and they're giving it to their friends who control NGOs. They're getting jobs. They're taking money from the working class and giving it to the political class, and none of it trickles down. we spent $1 billion, ODOT did, on a bridge between Vancouver and Portland that hasn't even broken ground yet. And they're $1 billion, and it's gone out the door. And now they're going to build it. They're going to spend another however many billion on this bridge, and it's not even going to have an additional lane.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like dealing with crackheads or something, I swear.
But the good news is the Umpqua Public Transportation District is the Doge of Oregon. It's the only MAGA-controlled transportation district in the entire state. And we're going to continue to improve the service and not ask for a penny from the taxpayers.
Did you see where
other sources?
You were talking about how the government steals money. One of the ways that they steal money is they use these economic development schemes. One of them is the urban renewal agencies. Portland just got 6 new urban renewal areas on top of, I don't know, about a dozen that you guys have already up there. And people don't understand, we're sucking about $100 million, probably more, because that was 10 years ago, the last time and it's been a while since I checked. $100 million or more is going to urban renewal, which is nothing but corporate welfare. It goes to private businesses. It goes to build strange modern art structures that nobody can understand and all that crap.
Exactly right.
Need. Yeah.
That bums piss on. Exactly. Yep. Or shoot up their dope with. Yeah. It's wild. You know what Trump did in this first term? He had the opportunity zones. And when I was going into 2020, in 2018, when I took over the coffee roastery that was a turnaround, it was a bankrupt coffee roastery, and I was turning it around. That we used the opportunity zone benefit turn that roastery from an 800 square foot roastery in Beaverton to a 4,500 square foot roastery in Southeast Portland, inner city. And it was all privately funded stuff. The improvements was all privately funded.
Right.
So the opportunity zone, it was really fantastic. But like you said, Rob, the this urban renewal is the opposite of an opportunity zone.
Yes.
It's the destruction of a potential opportunity. That's what it is.
In fact, I've told them that they should turn the entire state into an enterprise zone. Could you imagine if we had an enterprise? Because they really don't give you tax dollars. They just don't charge you taxes for the first 3 to 10 years. And I thought, why don't they give that to everybody? Wouldn't you be encouraging a hell of a lot of development if you told people, hey, if you buy property, we're not going to charge you any taxes for 3 to 5 years until you start developing that?
Well, that would be the smart thing and the logical thing to do, and it would be something that Democrats would have gotten behind 20 years ago. But the Democrat Party has drank so much Kool-Aid, and the goal is that they want to create a communist nation.
Yeah.
They signed the West Coast State Pact, the crazy ass governors of Oregon, Washington, California, to violate the civil rights, to violate the constitutional rights of all their citizens together in unison. And they did that in late 2019. And it was an anti-Trump. We'll open the economy when we say so. We'll let people take the mask off when we say so. And the Kool-Aid drinking Democrat voters and PCPs, they were like, yeah, because masks save people's lives and 6 feet distancing. Now we know all that's a crock of shit. And now we know, especially because Fauci got pardoned preemptively by Biden. So that's pretty much like, see you later, guys. Conspiracy theory number 107 proven legit. And so now people, even the Democrats, are like spitting the Kool-Aid out, going, what's going on? But what they're trying to do is create a communist country here. And they're trying to take the West Coast. So they're going to blow out all the businesses that are not willing to work or coexist with the oligarchy. And that's what they're going to try to create. And that's what Oregon's done. It's kicked out all the private companies that are like, not kicked out, but they're like, we're out of here. This is dumb. We're not going to play this game. And so we're losing Intel. We haven't lost Nike, but we probably will. I mean, we're on that. And
it's the same as California. You can't keep taxing people to death because eventually you run out of other people's money. It's just a fact.
Yeah.
Before I get you out of here, I know I've had you on here for a while now. I've got the vote by mail website here. Yeah. How can people get involved? How can people do something to help you get this on the ballot?
Yeah, go right there. Volunteer. See that volunteer button right there? Hit that volunteer button, because we're not going to be able to raise money to get paid signatures, which I think is a critical piece to this. Like, we all need to get signatures, but we're not going to do it unless we get 60, 70,000 signatures. And we're not going to get 60, 70,000 signatures without the full support of the people and people being willing to go out to their churches and their schools and their events, their neighborhood, and gather signatures. When we can get to that point, then we'll probably be able to raise money to get in paid signature gatherers that can help get us over the top. Right. I think that's where our other initiatives have failed. And this is the difference between, I think, our approach versus the previous approaches that have failed. And again, a victory here is getting on the ballot. Once on the ballot, I'm going to go out into the arena. Stephen Joncus, Michcaela Hammerson will get out into the arena, and we will fight in the media. We will fight for hearts and minds. We'll fight for truth, and we'll pin their asses against the wall with it. Hopefully that brings in Trump, and that brings in our federal government to come take action, to force audits, to use federal funding to clean up our voter rolls. And Stephen Joncus is the attorney for Judicial Watch, which is suing the state of Oregon right now. And they sued California, and that's why California had the largest increase in Republican voters in 40 years, because they cleaned the voter rolls. Look, and they didn't even clean all of them. They only cleaned up millions of them. And the lawsuit was like years ago where California lost, and they refused to clean any voter rolls for years. Then they had to go back and say, California, you're not following orders. Get these clean. So they pulled a few million out of like LA County, and that's all they did. There's probably tens of millions of voters that are dead in California still. But imagine if Oregon cleaned up their voter rolls. I mean, Oregon is Portland. That's it. We've got Portland, Eugene. We have no real other big cities except Portland metro area. So we clean the voter rolls up here, and the state of Oregon becomes reflective of its people. The
Right.
representatives become reflective. And right now, that's the big problem. And I don't care who you are. It's not, this is like Democrat, Republican. The Democrats in Portland are not represented. The vast majority of them are not represented. That's a fact.
Yeah, and totally, I can believe that, and that's where I think it's going to end. Like I said, those moderate Democrats are going to look at those far leftist Democrats and say, "Wait, now you're screwing us. Whoa, wait a minute, we can't have that."
No, people are tired. They're done. We're having to pay a preschool tax that the preschool system has totally failed. We're paying for a homeless tax, which the homeless system has totally failed. We're paying for all these taxes, and they're special metro area taxes. And they're big. Like if you make over $100,000 or $200,000 as a family, you're writing checks for 20 grand, 30 grand to Metro, City of Portland. It's crazy. And you already lose like 40% of your money. So if you make $400,000 a year, okay, you got a job where that's what you make. You're getting, 150, 175,000 pulled right out of there on of your taxes. Then you're having to write extra checks for 20, 30, 40 grand to the City of Portland and Metro. It's crazy. It's so crazy. It's hurtful. The money doesn't go very far like it used to.
Lenny is a regular watcher, and Lenny, thank you for tuning in. He says he's got 7 signatures, and he thinks he's slacking.
You ain't slacking. You got 7 signatures, man.
We love you, Lenny.
Go.
Good to
Thank
go.
you, Lenny.
But you were just talking about money, and here's what I don't understand. Well, and I do understand it, but I don't understand why it's occurred this way. But if the Republican Party was an effective machine, you wouldn't need, or anyone else wouldn't need, money for initiatives that are promoting issues that all Republicans vote for or agree with. That shouldn't even be a question when we do these initiatives. And I had to do it when I did the Second Amendment Preservation Ordinance and the Sanctuary Ordinance. And it wasn't until they realized I was going to kick ass on the ballot. It was a year when almost every Republican lost. And when they realized I was going to kick ass, all of a sudden the party came along. How can we help? How can we help? Almost at the last minute. And it's like, if you would have been here at the beginning, think of how much further along we would have been. And that's the problem.
Yeah. That's the problem. That's the problem. You ever notice when you need money, the bank always doesn't give you, they won't give you the loan,
Right.
Like
Right.
we got to do the work. We got to have the character to hold the blessing, and we don't. I firmly believe that as a party, as a group, as a team, all the way across the board in Oregon, we don't have the character to hold the blessing. And the reason why the Democrats have so much power, even though they clearly don't have the character, is because we got to just come to terms with the fact that we're working in a different economy, okay? We're working under a different economy. We just have to accept that, we are good-hearted people. We care about the things that God gave us, the freedom, the choice, the right to defend our lives and our property, all these things, right? The liberty. We were born with all this stuff. And so we recognize that. And we're not going to take something away from someone else because we want it. Right, that's the economy that we work in. So we have to have character that's different. We have to have this character that, faith, however you want to look at faith, but faith in one way or another that the right thing is going to turn out. That if we do the right thing, karma, however you want to look at it, whatever you call it, I don't care what you call it, man. It doesn't even matter. So it's like we are living in a different economy. But the other thing we have to do too is we have to take government agencies. Right? Democrats control all the government agencies.
Yeah.
And one of the things that Michcaela Hammerson led in the state, which was so incredible after being recalled from her positions and humiliated in front of her peers that elected her because she challenged a senator, a Republican in the primary. She turned around and took that energy and took a government agency.
Right.
And brought in the cavalry. And now we control that district, and we need more of that. We need to control agencies. We got to play politics. It's not a social club,
Right.
If I don't get elected to the ORP, it's because I'm not invited to the social club, which I'm not. I was the only Republican uninvited to Dorchester this last year.
Congratulations!
I'm not invited.
I love that. I would make a t-shirt myself. I was uninvited to Dorchester, and all I got was this lousy t-shirt.
Oh, we should totally do that, man. We'll make a t-shirt. That's how we'll do MBBN.
I love it, man. I love it. Hey, Anything else you got to say before we get you out of here, man?
Man, I just appreciate you, Rob. I appreciate everything. I appreciate how we got truly connected together. That was when all that happened.
Yep.
If not for that happening, we wouldn't have this north-south connection with true leaders across our state. It's crazy it's just crazy to me how tragedies are flipped around. And I love your character. I love your tenacity, and I love your voice. I love that you're out there fighting. I love that you just don't quit.
Right back at you, man. And you're a true blue, totally the most loyalist person I know, and you've stuck with me when we were taking flack. We had Lars Larson on our ass. I mean, geez. And I hope he's going to invite you on the show to talk about this.
I was just talking to him last week. He's good.
Okay. All right, man.
He did what he had to do.
Yeah. All right, man. You take care. It's been a blast. Okay.
You too, Rob. Thank you for having me on. And thank you, everybody, for listening. I appreciate your help and support.
All right. Take care, man.
See you now.
And that was Ben Edtl, and I still have it up, theendvbm.com. I recommend that you go there if you want to get involved. If you believe that vote by mail is a failure, that it's just riddled with fraud, you need to get involved. That's all there is to it, because otherwise, if you don't do something, others will, and you might not like what's being done. So you got to get involved. This is a participatory sport, politics, and by the way, it's a contact sport. You're going to make contact. You're going to get bruised up. You're going to get beaten. You're going to get rolled a little bit. And the best politicians are the one who can take that beating, get back up, and continue the fight. That's where it's at. It's not a matter of how hard you can hit. It's how hard you can take a hit. And man, I'll tell you what, Ben and me, Michcaela too, we took a lot of hits. Diane Rich, we took some really hard hits in politics, and yet we're still moving forward. We had that wind turbine thing, and we won it on the ballot. That was a success. One of these days, I'm going to go over all the campaigns that people have been involved with in Coos County that are what I consider Republican issues. And I'm going to go over these campaigns because I don't think people remember going all the way back to the Tea Party, how many different campaigns we have had since then. It's probably been about a dozen or so where we actually made some difference. We won most of those campaigns, not all of them, but you can't win unless you get into the fight. So, that's where we are at with that. I'm going to completely shift gears here, and let me get that end vote by mail out of here. Let's see. I don't know if you heard about this on Inauguration Day. There was an immigration officer who was killed. And anytime you hear a story like that, I was immediately, well, who killed him? Why was he killed? Why was this immigration pulling over this person? Why was this such an action that an immigration officer would get shot during a traffic stop? It just sounded weird. And then the story kind of went nowhere. I don't know if you've seen that, but we had an immigration officer actually killed in the line of duty. And you would think this would be huge news considering immigration is the number one issue. And I think I found out why on Andy No's X feed. His, I don't know if you know who Andy No is. He's that Asian American reporter who was attacked by Antifa in Portland. He's been attacked several times. Well, he put out this story here talking about the couple who killed that officer. And I'm going to read you from right here. You can read along if you would like. It says, liberal media has been uninterested in investigating the couple involved in shooting dead a U.S. Border Patrol agent in Coventry, Vermont, near the Canadian border on Inauguration Day. Why? Both in the duo are leftist trans militants. Like, as if there's any other kind, right? Yeah. But one of the deceased armed militants is a German believed to be in the country on an H-1B visa. The duo is allegedly connected to a trans terror cell. Did you hear that? A trans terror cell. Now look at this creature here, this creature that's on the screen here. This is one of the people who shot at the officer, killed the officer, shot him dead. Here's the other one, and I'll continue reading here. It says federal law enforcement had been surveilling German man Felix, or Ophelia as he likes to go by, Bockholt. I think that's how you pronounce that, Bockholt. He a student, and Seattle student Teresa Milo Youngblood. Boy, they've got some crazy last names. Maybe that was the problem with these people. But Youngblood, who goes by the pronoun Z, Zer, Zers, well, that's just batshit crazy. After staff of a Londonville, Vermont motel reported seeing them with black tactical clothing, weapons, and protective military style equipment. They were wearing it at the hotel, and I guess that's why this officer was concerned, this immigration officer. And look at the freak here. There's another freak here. I mean, this is the last freak, and here's the new freak. These are men. Well, what's left of their being men. And here's the officer, a real man who got killed. This is a sad situation. When the duo was pulled over on January 20th, Youngblood allegedly shot dead Officer David Malond in a surprise attack. In the returning fire, Bockholt, who was also armed, was killed. Youngblood was injured and survived. Well, that's too bad. That's too bad that both of them weren't killed in this instance. And what the real crime is that this officer was killed. This young officer, David Malond, he had his whole life ahead of him. He was just protecting our country. And once again, someone here on a visa, legally here, another immigrant who's a trans, who's part of a trans militant cell. I mean, what did they call that? Yeah, a trans terror cell. A trans terror cell. Well, you know, if there was a trans cell, I think it would be terrifying all on its own. You don't even have to call it a trans terror cell, because if you got a trans cell, there's terror involved. That's just a scary thing. And once again, I have tried to show this link between trans people committing violence and all the crimes that have been going on, and the fact that we're trying to portray these people as normal, that this is natural. It's normal for a young man to want to be a woman. Well, no, it's batshit crazy to want to cut off your penis. Any man out there who wants to cut off his penis, that guy has mental issues. I can tell you that right now. But the thing is that you look at these people and you can see, this is once again, this second picture of Milo here. This is a man with pink hair. I mean, what a freak of nature. And this is something that was portrayed. This is how Hollywood used to portray trans people years and years ago. They would show them in these type of images and show the fact that these are some very mentally unstable people. I'll give you an example. Look at this movie, going back all the way to, I believe this was made in the 1970s.
Some of your
70s.
political beliefs.
Kill everyone now. Condone first-degree murder. Advocate cannibalism. Eat shit. Filth are my politics. Filth is my life. Take whatever you like.
Yes.
Now, I know some trans people, and I can tell you right now, they have some mental problems. There, you know, no matter how well they're adjusting to society, how well adjusted they are, it doesn't matter. They still have some mental issues. So I'm not saying that every trans person is like this divine character I showed you. However, there are a lot of trans people like this Milo woman on the screen and this Ophelia. No, you can't. Please don't. Ophelia. No, I don't want you to. And Ophelia there, and Milo, of course. Maybe it's Milo. I don't know. I could be wrong. But Milo there, you can see that there is definitely something wrong upstairs. There's something wrong in the skull. There is something wrong with their brain. And Hollywood used to show these people in a very unfavorable light. And I don't think that's always true because, like I said, there's good and bad in every group of people. But when you have a trans group of people who look unstable, who act unstable, hell, this couple here is killing immigration officers, and they're part of a trans terror cell. You have to start questioning, how bad is it? How violent are these trans people going to get? Because it seems like they're the ones. I mean, the last several shootings that were done and committed in this country were done by trans people. What does that say for them when they make up less than 1% of the population? I mean, if they're committing that huge of a percentage of the shootings and killing of immigration officers, then what does that say about their demographic of people? I mean, what does that say about trans people? It sounds like they're very violent, and partially because, well, we know they're mentally unstable. So we got to stop this normalizing this trying to make it normal, because it's not normal. There isn't anything normal about this whatsoever. And what's even worse is it's bad when a person is allowed to pretend to the point where they can pretend whatever they want. But when you're asking society to go along with your pretentious desires, that's when we have to stop and say, no, we're an accepting group of people. And America is an accepting group of people. Overall, we're an accepting group of people. But if you're committing violence and you're doing things like this couple is, then yeah, you're going to get the criticism that you deserve. And it's just sad that this turned out the way it did. There were a couple of news stories that I want to get out here. These were some Oregon stories, and I thought this was also going with immigration. And as far as I know, these folks here are not trans people, but 4 Chilean nationals arrested in Oregon for multi-state home burglary ring. So, you would think that Oregon has enough of our own homegrown burglars. I mean, here you go to Coos Bay in the Empire neighborhood, I think you could probably find burglars real easy in Empire. I mean, it's something that occurs on a regular basis. So why do we need foreign burglars to come here? And I hope these Chilean nationals, I hope they're caught. This was a multi-state burglary ring, and Carlton, Oregon. A multi-state home burglary ring on the East Coast ended in Oregon, with local and federal authorities arresting 4 of the 7 accused Chilean nationals on January 8th in Carlton, right outside of McMinnville. The Attorney General's office in Newark, New Jersey reported the 7 men are accused of targeting homeowners in New Jersey and Massachusetts, walking away with at least $100,000 in designer handbags, jewelry, watches, perfume, and more. Authorities said that after they stopped a vehicle carrying some of the stolen items on the East Coast, 4 of the men accused of being part of the interstate burglary crew fled across the country to Seattle. Well, of course, because that's the best. Seattle is very welcoming to immigrants, illegal aliens, and criminals. So of course they went to Seattle, but they went there with more of the stolen goods. And eventually the group rented an Airbnb in Carlton to hide out. Along the way, they rented a car on Turo from Jose Cienfuegos, who lives in Happy Valley. However, authorities say the men were using fake identities and short-term rentals to evade getting caught, and said it was like they were chasing ghosts. One of those fake identities is what Cienfuegos said one of the men used to rent his Porsche. Isn't that nice? It's like immigrants, they have more access to the creation of false IDs and real IDs than I have ever had the ability to obtain. It's amazing how they can get all these IDs. It's funny that the Democrats, they're always saying that they have to have they don't want to have people check for signatures, and IDs, because minorities can't get IDs. And there's 4 Chileans, actually 7 Chileans, not only using their own IDs, but several fake IDs and using them very successfully. So I think the Democrats, well, I think for lack of a better word, they're liars. They are liars when they're saying that minorities cannot get IDs. Not only can minorities get IDs, they can get IDs that aren't even their own. So I don't know what the hell you're talking about. It's very insulting to the average white guy who I don't even know where to get a fake ID. So I'm more apt not to be able to commit crimes as successful as these Chileans, because I can't get a false ID. I wouldn't even know. I don't know about you guys. Do any of you know where to get a false ID? If you do, please leave it in the comments. I'd like to hear about this. But no, that was, that was something that we tried to get when we were kids. And even then it was very difficult to get a false ID. So it blows my mind when Democrats try to say that these poor illegal immigrants, yes, they don't have the intelligence or the smarts to be able to, get an ID for themselves. Now, here was another one that I thought was interesting. The Ninth Circuit upholds Oregon's controversial privacy statute. Now, this is the statute where Oregon is a two-party notification state, meaning that if you're on a phone call or if you're in a conversation with someone and you want to record it, you better know and let everyone know there that they're being recorded. Otherwise, it's against the law. In most states, only one person, of course, it's usually the person who's recording, they know that they're recording, and the people who they are recording as well in the conversation, they don't have to tell them. And that's the way I think it should be. I mean, you go out to dinner, you call someone on the phone. I don't think you should expect privacy unless you ask for it. And with these politicians, there have been times when I have been wanting to record some of the conversations that I've had with politicians. And I know that Matt Wilbanks, I don't know if you remember this, there's the Devereaux Center, the local homeless center who's since been shut down. There was a lady who ran the place by the name of Tara Johnson. Matt Wilbanks, who ran the Coos County Neighborhood Watch, met with Tara Johnson. And during that meeting, he recorded the conversation unbeknownst to Tara Johnson or the gentleman who was also at the meeting. He didn't tell them. And we could never put that out until about 6 months ago when one of the courts said that Oregon's two-party notification policy on conversations, recording conversations, was unconstitutional, and they rejected the law. And so Matt released that recording that he had made during that meeting, and now I wonder if he's worried that they may come after him now that the Ninth Circus has found that the Oregon law was constitutional. I don't agree with him. I don't think that, if I meet you at a restaurant, we're having a conversation. If you want it private, you better ask me to have it private. You better ask me to have it off the record because I might be recording you. I think that's perfectly legitimate. Otherwise, we wouldn't even have Project Veritas. They wouldn't have been able to give us all the information that they've been giving us and all these corrupt politicians if they weren't allowed to record conversations. And so this is going to go to the Supreme Court, and I think it's going to come out in our favor. So I hope Matt holds steady and doesn't do anything with the recording that he has of Tara Johnson. So that ought to be something. And that was pretty much the news stories I had for you this week. I really wanted to get out the vote by mail with Ben Edtl, because the guy is really doing the right thing. And whether you think this is going to pass or not, if it gets on the ballot, is irrelevant. We need to fight this fight because of several different reasons. Number one, it pulls the politicians our direction because they have to support these type of initiatives. If they come out publicly against these initiatives, it makes them look bad. So it pulls their ideological beliefs to the right. And secondly, maybe not their beliefs, but maybe their decisions. Maybe that's how that should work. I don't know. I don't know what they believe truly. And then secondly, it gives us a grab for getting people into the booths that we're going to have so that we can talk about the Republican Party. We can talk about precinct captains. We can talk about the upcoming election. And that's something that's very important, is that we in February 9th, you're going to be able to register to run for special districts. These are the library districts, the hospital districts. The college is up. I think they have 4 up on the college. North Bend School District has all 4 of the conservatives up for re-election. I think in North Bend, those conservatives are going to run again. So it should be good for that. But all the other districts are up for re-election. And if you are a conservative, you're worried about the direction of all of these different taxing districts, especially the schools, especially the hospital, even the fire stations. If you're concerned about that, then you definitely need to look into running for office, because that's what's important. And one of the ways that we meet new candidates is by having a way to pull them in to talk to us. And that's why we have this initiative booth. We've had several initiative booths, I would say, for probably over the last 10, 12 years, probably 15 years. It'd probably be about 15 years. And so this is going to be really a sensational thing. And I wish the Republican Party, the state party, would get behind Ben Edtl and really promote this initiative petition. I wish they would have done it when they had school choice. School choice was another one that they should have got behind more than they did. And, like I said, I mean, it took me a while for them to get behind my petition for the Second Amendment Sanctuary Ordinance and Preservation Ordinance. And it wasn't until the very last that the party got interested. And it was only because they knew we were going to win so many of the different counties, which we did. We won over 80% of the counties with that ordinance itself. And so we're going to continue on. We're going to continue on with these initiatives, and we're going to move forward. But we need all the people on board. So I hope you can support Ben Edtl with his initiative and what he's doing. And of course, before I get out of here, I got to tell you, let me check my phone here. Let me see real quick. Oh, I didn't get yeah, I did. Okay. It says, yep. So they had a winner for 3H tree service. They had a winner for Where's 3H tree service. Congratulations, whoever that winner was. And I've got a commercial for 3H tree service, and it's one of the best commercials you'll see anywhere. I'm telling you. And that was 3H Tree Services commercial. That was badass. Wasn't that badass? I mean, real men doing what real men do. I mean, they're up there 60, 70, 80, 90 feet in the air, topping those trees. That's badass. That's badass. More than I could certainly do at this age. I'm not even sure if I could do it at 30. That's a hell of a job to do. And I got to give the Holmans credit for doing it. They do an excellent job. You can find out more at 541-294-1800. If you have any trees that you need to remove, maybe they're Antifa trees. You know those Antifa trees. They're infested with bugs. They're disease ridden. They're a liability. At any moment, they can start a fire. They're freaking Antifa, man. You got to get rid of those trees. You got to get rid of those trees. So, just putting out there that 3H Tree Service are professionals and can surgically remove those Antifa trees without causing any other disturbance. Isn't that nice? I wish we could do that with the real Antifa, but for some reason we can't, because we got to let rioters riot. That's just what we do. But not 3H tree service. If you got an Antifa tree in your yard, like I said, it's a liability. The branches may fall off at any time and cause damage, property damage. Yeah, just like Antifa, you got to get rid of these trees. And 3H tree service, they're the people to do it. They just won the award for South Coast Oregon's best tree service. I mean, these guys kick ass. The Holman people, they are professionals. They'll come in, they'll remove those trees, and you won't even know they took anything out. And you want to see more of those videos? Go to 3H Tree Service on Facebook and check out those videos. Those are some badass videos they have. Tim didn't call in. I didn't get a call from Tim. Well, that's strange because I wanted them to come on the show to tell us about some of the things that have been going on over at Tom and Gigs. You need some shocks, you need struts, you need to align the tires. Yeah, well, they can take care of all of that. You need to have your car checked out because you're going on a trip. Well, it's that time of the year. You better get it done. And Tom and Gigs is the place to do it. They take care of all your automotive needs. You can go see Tim and Shanna, the owners over there, really great people. You can give them a call at 541-888-4660. Once again, that's 541-888-4660. Give them a call over there if you want to get your car in. They are so good. They do have a little bit of a backup on when they can see vehicles, and you can go down there if you want to see them in person. If you want to go get an RC car, they've got those remote control cars. They're really badass. The last time I was there, they had a huge selection of those remote control cars, and they're really cool. You got some kids. Hell, you like to play with those cars? Really great place. They're the largest distributor of those RC cars in the area, and that's at 135 South Shoneman Street, behind the car wash in Empire neighborhood. Yeah, you all know where Empire is? Well, then you know where the car wash is. You can go check out Tom and Gigs at 135 South Shoneman. Herbal choices for all the herbal needs out there. I know there are some people out there who like to smoke a little pot. Not all Republicans or people who like to smoke dope. No, there's not people out there who, all of us who appreciate that, but there are a few, and I know a few of them tune into my show. And if you do tune into my show and you've got some herbal needs, let me recommend something for you. Herbal Choices. Herbal Choices is a great place to go to take care of all those herbal needs, and they have well-lit stores with very nice parking lots. And the bud tenders, they're very expert. They're experts on anything you need. You ask them about any of the products that they sell, and they can answer pretty much anything on that. That's Herbal Choices. Herbal Choices, they got 5 stores in the area. They got one up in Reedsport. They got one in North Bend, one in Coos Bay, one here south of Bandon. That's my favorite store, the one south of Bandon. I'm a regular customer. They know me by name down there at the one south of Bandon. And, of course, the one in Charleston. Very good stores, very good places, great people. I highly recommend them. Herbal Choices, good sponsors of mine. And, of course, Oregon Firearms Federation, fighting for your Second Amendment rights. If all the other rights were to be lost tomorrow, we'd have the Second Amendment rights. Thanks to people like Kevin Starrett, who is the director of Oregon Firearms Federation, and he's been fighting for your Second Amendment rights for a long damn time, a very long damn time. And I'll tell you what, we're going to be going to more legal sessions. We're going to be facing more trials because, the Democrats, they're going to pass a whole bunch of new gun legislation, which means we're going to be tied up in court, which means it's going to cost us a lot of money to do this. We don't like to spend this money. We wish we didn't have to do this. We really hate it when the state government works against its own people. We really hate that. But if you want to find out more, you want to become a supporter, go to OregonFirearms.org. They are not my sponsor, but they are good people. If you are living in the Bandon area and you want to try out your pistol or go to a 5-stand shotgun trap shoot. There you go at the Bandon Gun Club. Go to bandongunclub.org. And of course, we have Taiga Sports Park where they have 100-yard, it's a 100-yard range for your rifles. And if you want to sight in your telescopes, really good place to go in and to sight in your telescopes. Like I said, not my sponsors, but they're good people. And I always like to promote the Coos County Neighborhood Watch. If you want to find out about the local criminals, we got a lot of local criminals, a lot of scumbags, kind of like that Eugene Moy that keeps messing with Doug Washington. You got to see last Friday's show, the Friday night rant. This past Friday night, I had Doug Washington on here. And, he's been having problems at his house, and we had videos of people stealing his mail and how he dealt with it. He went and, he kind of confiscated their bikes. Yeah, that's the way Doug Washington does it. Don't be a cuck. Take back your neighborhood. That's what Doug Washington says. And if you want to be a part of a good group, Coos County Neighborhood Watch, they've got over 7,000 members. They're doing a hell of a job out there. There are people actively out there on the streets looking and searching for any crime or property crime or any other crimes that are being committed out there. They're looking for that. They're keeping an eye out, and they always need help. So go to Coos County Neighborhood Watch and become a member. And remember, like we said, don't be a cuck. Take back your neighborhood. Take back your neighborhood, damn it. And well, that was pretty much all I had to tell you this week. I could go on for several hours. I mean, that President Trump, I think on the next couple of shows, I'm going to do a review of all the things that President Trump has done, all the executive orders, all the orders that he has put out, all the things that his administration has done. I think because it's amazing. I mean, I just saw a list on the internet of all the things that our President Trump has already accomplished. And I told the story about Colombia, how he dealt with Colombia when they refused to take our planes with their people on it. We got your people here. You're going to take the planes. I don't know. They're damn lucky it's Trump, because I would say, well, release the doors and shove them the hell out. I mean, what do you mean? What do you mean Colombians can't fly? Oh, well, who knew? And so, yeah, that's the way. I think that should be the rule. If the company won't take back their own citizens, well, then we'll just drop them. We'll just drop them right there in your country. We might actually get low enough where they could survive. They might break a leg or two, but I don't know. Maybe after we do that a few times, these countries will get the idea that you're not going to be allowed to come into our country illegally anymore. And I tell you what, Colombia has laws against being in their country illegally. If you go to Colombia illegally, you can go to prison. I believe it's for several years. So I don't know why these Colombians have a problem. I mean, all that cocaine we bought during the 80s, they should be damn happy. They should be living pretty well. So I don't know what the hell the problem is with the Colombians, but they're not going to take back their people. I say fly the plane over and drop them out. Parachutes? No, I can't afford that kind of thing. Drop them the hell out. Yeah, it's who knew Colombians couldn't fly? Amazing stuff. But I hope you check in. Friday night rant. Don't know who's going to be on the Friday night rant. Maybe we'll get Marty back again. I always enjoy when Marty gets back. I did want to show you this video. I thought this was interesting. And the reason I want to play this video before I get out of here is because it involves Senator Wyden. I've had a couple of private meetings with Senator Wyden, and he's the most creepiest politician out there. I mean, David Brock Smith is a doofus and creepy as well, but not like Ron Wyden. Ron Wyden has this undead vibe to him. He's like a zombie. He's weird. He's like a reptilian. It's weird. The only other one that I've ever met was Pete Domenici back in the 80s. He was a representative. He was a senator for New Mexico, and I liked Pete Domenici until I met him. And once again, I got this weird vibe off of him. He just wasn't, I don't know, with it. There was just something odd with him. And Ron Wyden is the same way. I've met him a couple of times down here at the Bandon Library when he's had town halls. When we were fighting the Bandon Marsh, he would call us up. When I say we, there were a couple of us who were leading that fight, and we would have private meetings with Ron Wyden, and the guy was just creepy. The guy was really weird. So they were trying to confirm, I forget the gentleman's name here, but he was for the Secretary of Treasurer. And you got to listen to what Wyden told this guy during the hearings. You're going to love this.
And that is about the legislation that was written in this room that was the biggest transformation on clean energy in American history. That is our package that basically said the tax code as it relates to energy is a broken down mess. And we basically said we're going to have a technology neutral system. The more you reduce carbon, the bigger your tax savings. Now there is a big effort in the Trump administration to reverse it. I think that's going to be bad for the economy, but it is going to be damn good for China because we are in an arms race on clean energy with them. Are you going to be on the side of people who want to unravel this?
Senator Wyden, just so we can frame this for everyone in the room, China will build 100 new coal plants this year. There is not a clean energy race. There is an energy race. China will build 10 nuclear plants this year. That is not solar. I am in favor of more nuclear plants. And I would note that the IRA, as scored by the CBO, is wildly out of control in terms of spending on the upside.
Well, first of all,
So is that Besant or Besant? I don't know. But what a moron Wyden is. Oh, no, we got to tax people on if they're, they're not dirtying up the climate. We got to keep that carbon out of the climate. Yeah, dude, look, carbon isn't our problem. Politicians who have too much power, that's the problem with our country. And this gentleman who's running for I forget the position he was running for, but Secretary of Treasurer, he answered correctly. We're not in a clean energy race. We're in an energy race, and China and other countries have pulled a fast one on America and said, "Oh, you guys, we got to clean up the world. And since you're the number one polluter, which we're not no longer, China is the number one polluter. We've actually done a lot of cleaning of as far as the carbon that's released in this country, but they have really pulled the wool over our politicians' eyes because they got us doing all this solar crap, this wind turbine crap that doesn't work, and yet they're building more coal plants. They're building more nuclear plants. And we should be doing that here in America. And I hope that the Trump administration approves some nuclear plants here in America. I think that's one of the safest and most reliable energy sources we have. And we are way behind in the technology because, we started that technology. In America, we're the one who created those nuclear energy facilities. And we stopped that after, what was that Jane Fonda movie? Gosh, I can't think of the movie where, they had that nuclear meltdown. The reactor is going to go right to the core of the earth and we're all going to die. And it didn't happen. It's, it's ridiculous that they think that Fukushima and all these other accidents that's happened over the years. Yeah, there's some problems with it. It's going to cause damage. It's going to hurt people. But overall, it's not going to hurt people near as much as driving them into complete poverty to get rid of carbon gases that aren't going to make a difference. It's really ridiculous. And so, yeah, I don't know what the hell's the matter with Wyden. I got another comment here before I leave. Let's see. Samantha Frost says, "Oh my God, he does look dead. I don't even see the whites of his eyes." Yeah, you should shake his hand, Samantha. I mean, the guy has this, and I'm one of those people, I've always have cold hands. People said I should be a mortician. And yet this guy hands, they felt like ice. It felt like ice, and they were really bony. He has these bony fingers, and it's like I thought it was going to break the guy. I mean, it was like it was a shell over another body. I'm telling you, Wyden is one of those reptilians. I just got a feeling. I don't know. I have no proof whatsoever, but I just think he's one of the reptilians. Just throwing that out there. And I want to thank you all for tuning in. Tune in Friday for the Friday Night Rant, 8:00. Rumble, YouTube, wherever the hell you're catching me now. You can catch me again, 8:00 on Friday. And of course, I'll be back Monday, and we'll probably be talking about the legislature. I'm going to try to get a guest in who's been dealing with the legislature and tell us what the heck has been going on. What the heck's going on? I don't know. Something's going on, and we'll take care of it. So, and you guys, I don't know. I appreciate every single one of you. Christine, Samantha, Oregon Outlaw. I appreciate you tuning in and checking it out. I appreciate all the rest of you who tuned in on other platforms that don't allow comments. I don't know who you are. Otherwise, I'd be mentioning your names. If you do want to join the conversation, I think Facebook and YouTube are the only platforms where I can read the comments. You can comment on Rumble. I just don't get to see them. So, there's that. What a beautiful day out is. It's supposed to be beautiful today and tomorrow, and then Thursday the rain is supposed to come back. I don't know. I'm not looking forward to that, but what the hell. I'm going to enjoy today and tomorrow, and I hope you all get out there. And until next time, carry on, Coos County. Carry on.